Everybody here into a late night edition of the Garden Report as the Celtics fall to the Grizzlies in overtime. It was a fun game. It was a good game. There's a lot that went wrong, but we don't like to make excuses, but you can make some excuses here. Before the game, Jayson Tatum bowed out due to illness. He warmed up. He didn't play. And
I think he had a case of the runs.
Had something. And then no Kemba, it's a back-to-back. So you knew you were up against it here a little bit.
I think it was those wings he had. He posted. I saw somewhere he posted on social media some late-night wings last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, something
seems to be the most likely culprit.
Ching wings. I mean, listen.
Wings will do it. We've all been there, guys. Come on, let's keep it. Let's be honest here.
I love young professional athletes who just can have like
college kids. Yeah.
You have like 60 wings after a game and think that's okay.
Yeah, there's a certain point I think in a player's career where they realize that they can't get away with eating shit all the time.
Yeah.
Ray Allen used to talk.
Is this a long-term concern for Tatum?
Generally,
no, we're just giving him shit, but yeah.
Well, he gave himself shit, is what he did.
Well, you've heard about his diet. It's freaking terrible. It's like spaghetti with ranch sauce.
Subway subs and Ruffles, right?
Clean that stuff up, buddy.
He puts syrup on everything I hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, those wings.
I love when
just wings. Those were dipped. Those were dunked in a honey barbecue.
Of course, the works. Yeah.
So if that's what it was, then
those Memphis wings.
Shame on him. Stick to the.
I didn't even think about that, Bobby. Yeah, Memphis. Man. Oh, that's exactly what happened.
Not everyone can handle that, Memphis.
They flew in late last night, and the first thing he did at 3 a.m. was get a ton of wings.
Yeah, why not? You're only there for one night.
All right.
It's a popular spot, I guess.
You hear about a good spot, you're there one night, you got to get them while you can.
John would have done the same thing. He's looking to enrich himself with the diet of the community there.
Yep, when in Rome. So Celtics lose this game. Seems of little consequence because they lose every other game, so we just get used to this.
32 and 32.
Finding new ways, John. I hate it.
But there's actually some positives here, and we'll get them. I guess someone has to do a Teague apology cam tonight because people have been demanding it on Twitter. Everyone thinks everyone is culpable here.
Which is crazy.
We know who the real culprits are, so we'll get back to that in a little. Another phenomenal game by Rob Williams. We'll spend some time there, but this was really this was the Aaron Gordon game because during the game, all of those rumors started coming out there. So let's do the game quick, and then we're going to get into the Aaron Gordon stuff because I think that's going to carry the conversation tonight because, the reports are now that the Celtics are close. So we'll spend some time on that. We all have some thoughts. We shared them on the thread. Just starting with the game tonight, where do you guys want to start on this one? The positive or the negative? I mean, the negative was crazy. 80 points in the paint for Memphis.
Let's start there.
Celtics shot 50-something% from the floor, 48% from three, dished out 30-something assists and lost. And that's the numbers. How many more shots was it, Jimmy, they took?
21, I think it was. I mean, leading up to the final 30 seconds or so.
20, in the end.
Yeah. John, the first 5 points that the Grizzlies scored in overtime were just off of rebounds, just pure effort. I mean, the Celtics, it surprised me that they were able to get away with that as far as they did, obviously going into overtime. And then they never cleaned that part up. And literally, as soon as overtime started, it bit them right away.
So weird that you verse this team again that has one of the worst offenses in basketball, 21st. They got away with it against Orlando, who I think was bottom 3 in offense. We know the Cavs lit them up, who were the worst offense in the NBA. And then again tonight, I think Memphis was 21st coming in this one in offense, and they put up 132. And that ends up being, based on how many they scored in overtime, still around 120, just short of 120 for the whole game. Their defense was absolutely horrible tonight, and it didn't matter who they had in.
Team. Who's playing defense?
They weren't playing defense. Yeah.
Who's doing it outside of Rob? Doing his part. Who's playing defense on this team?
It's a collective failure. connectiveness. Look at the play that this almost decided the game, the Ja Morant backdoor cut. Rob and Smart couldn't find a handoff partner there. I believe it was probably Smart who was supposed to stick with the guard there around the screen. And they just had
for no reason on that. Why? There's too much margin for error there when you've got all these moving parts.
Right, exactly. And you know what? They're lucky that they were able to push this thing into overtime, because I'm like, okay, they're getting points in the paint. They're feasting over the Celtics on that part of the game, right? And then they start dropping threes, because remember, they were ice cold in the first half from behind the arc, where the Celtics were the complete opposite. Like that was essentially keeping the Celtics in the game. And then all of a sudden they start, they catch fire from downtown. And I'm like, oh man, here we go again. Like this could have been a blowout. What if this is a blowout? Like that would have been.
Yeah, I felt that way in the second quarter when Memphis came out hitting 8 or 9.
Yeah, they could have lost around there, or maybe a 10, 11 point deficit. I mean, something like that. No overtime. I don't know. So, it's just effort again in that overtime period. I didn't see any of it.
Effort, and again, everyone's gonna think I have an agenda here, and it's funny because like I don't in this regard, but like the overtime, if you're gonna break it down, your best players are the ones who failed you. Jaylen did a miserable job on Brooks on defense. Miserable job. Miserable.
Crushed him.
Miserable.
Yeah.
Terrible. And then Marcus Smart was freaking awful in overtime. 3 totally unnecessary hero ball, untimely shots for no reason at all. And what's so interesting about Marcus here is Marcus is being mentioned as a possibility in this Aaron Gordon trade, which again we'll get to again. And my initial inclination was, I don't know. And Jimmy and I were both the same on the thread. This seems like, I don't know what that does for you. Does it make you better or not? And it's like almost as if, symbolically, Marcus was playing for his Celtics career tonight, and then he makes a couple great plays in the fourth late, and that bucket that got him, I think, within 2 there, or the end one or whatever.
Got the end one,
but he also had a turnover late in the fourth. But then just terrible in overtime, and the comments here are filled. Everyone's like, "Gone." See you, Marcus. I want you out of here. I know.
But Teague's the starter now, right?
Who needs to trade anybody if you can just trade for this version of Jeff Teague at the trade deadline?
Right.
It'd be a perfect swap.
I can echo you guys. I mean, when I lose Jayson Tatum and you don't have Kemba Walker, you would expect that points would be hard to come by. And they wouldn't lose a ton on the defensive end because, Kemba Walker is not, this defensive stalwart. And Jayson Tatum this season hasn't been anything to write home about defensively. So you'd think they could make up for that. Play solid defense and one of those grinded out type wins. I mean, the Grizzlies used to be the ultimate grinded out team. They're no longer that team. Clearly, obviously the rosters come down to 180, but those used to be the games where you'd grind out a 90 to 86 win. And there's no reason why it couldn't have been something similar to that tonight. But the Celtics again, and it goes back to effort. It goes back to connectivity, like you talked about. I mean, they're not grabbing boards the way they should. I mean, they got out rebounded like crazy on the offensive glass.
Defensively late was awful.
Fast break points were, everything pointed in the direction of Memphis. Fast break points, second chance points, rebounds, obviously field goal attempts. All that to me comes back to effort, intensity, the willingness or the want to, go the extra mile there. And again, I mean, I thought it was a fun game. I thought the Celtics did make a lot of mini comebacks within. They went down 7, they went down 9, they came back each time, which was nice, but they couldn't string those performances together long enough. And like you said, Marcus,
there's some personnel issues too, though, Jimmy. And they're just not they're not equipped to deal with teams who are banging them inside or physical or second chance, and they're not equipped for that. I mean, they can get beat up inside pretty easily.
They do.
Yeah.
They definitely do.
And that's less effort and more just simple limitations. They just don't have it. And again, even when Tristan's playing, Tristan's the most physical of the 3. We've seen him getting eaten alive by bigger players. He tries hard. He's Mr. Participation Trophy, but the results haven't been great with him either.
Right. And I think also, to that, we talk about Robert Williams progressing and how important he's going to be, whether you throw him in a trade or whether we're talking about, him finishing the season with the Celtics. I mean, listen, Valanciunas, he's sort of one of those low-key big men that doesn't get talked about a lot for that part of his game, right? Well, at least that's the part of his game that everyone talks about, but it's not like, how consistent he is with the double-double machine.
He's so big.
Especially against the Celtics, right? Yeah, like he ate up 17 rebounds like it was nothing. And
he's so
the physicality, like, listen, a year ago, Robert is completely intimidated. He's head down. He's walking around moping. Not tonight, And I thought he got pushed around a lot, and he fought back, and he composed himself. And in that second half, he's one of the biggest reasons, along with Jeff Teague, maybe Marcus could put in there as well, that the Celtics were able to push this thing into overtime.
He's low key a really good. I mean, you're right, really low key,
so
really,
so
really good player.
So what I'm finding interesting as we talk about the defense.
He's 16 and 12 this year. I mean, it's not even low key. I mean, he's a monster.
Right. No one talks about it. Right.
He had 19 boards tonight. He's a monster.
19.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah, he's one of the more underrated bigs in the league, and you
really
would like a little more size on him, a box out type of player. It's so weird with Rob. He's such a great rebounder at this point still, and I still don't feel like he's that great at boxing out.
He's not. He's a spatial rebounder. You see
people go right around it.
Yeah. He doesn't body. He just kind of like
grabs it out of the air, and that made him a weaker rebounder early in his career. And now he's just been able to grab them at a higher rate doing that, tracking probably, but boxing out on a night like this, you're going to give up a lot of offensive rebounds.
I mean, you watch this all the time. I mean, nobody boxes out. Everyone stands there with their arms like this and wherever space they're in. And then they just – not a lot of people put their ass into somebody like you were taught growing up.
Smart does.
It's more like a pose. It's like a stance now. It's not a physical action.
Yeah, because a lot of teams don't charge the offensive boards that hard. No, that probably is what it is.
They put a hand on guys to know where they are, and then they react to the ball. There's not a lot of body. But, I mean, you're right. And Rob's just such a quick leaper, and that's his advantage.
But when you do have a guy who's chasing the offensive boards hard, like Valanciunas tonight, it ends up making a difference. And that's kind of what the Celtics were trying to catch teams with earlier in the year. And they've lost that to some degree with Thompson out, but they also seem more focused on getting back and setting themselves defensively. So you lose a little bit of an advantage there, but they've gotten better defensively in recent weeks. I just find the differential with this team in wins and losses so jarring, because when they win, they're allowing 108 points a game. When they lose, they're allowing 113. And that's pretty much the range between being top 5 in the league defensively and being bottom 5 in the league defensively. So if it feels like this team's all over the place defensively, they really are. Like, they have some nights where probably the opponents fall out of it. They've had a couple blowouts, stuff like that. But on nights like tonight where it's close, where it goes deep into the stretches of this game, they're giving up a ton of points, and they have to chase those teams to that finish line. And as we know, when they're a spot-up jumping team, this offense isn't that great. They're not able to win these high-scoring matchups.
Yeah. Well, here's the one thing. And again, you can talk about it as a fluke or a flash in the pan, but Jeff Teague obviously had a ridiculous game, but it wasn't just the game that he had in the final stats. It was how he got his points, which was aggressively attacking the paint, getting defenders off balance, pace, that type of stuff that you're like, Brad's been ripping his hair out trying to get everybody else to do. And he did it all night. And again, I'm not doing this to make it a referendum on Kemba, but was this Jeff Teague game a top 5 Kemba game this year? This is as good.
Oh man.
No, I'm not. Seriously, was it?
I mean, what do you mean in that sense? Are you saying like this is like one of his top
Kemba
5?
had 5 better performances than this all season? I don't think so.
Maybe a couple. Yeah, 5.
This was an outstanding. This is exactly what you want somebody to do, to attack, to get points.
That's a terrible equivalency, because Teague's had one himself.
Yeah. I don't like that ratio, John. That ratio is little.
All I'm saying is you love this type of performance, right? Like this is what you want.
But there's only been one.
Yeah, so far.
Oh they're just gonna come flying down the river now.
Hold on. Don't sleep on game 1. Bobby, that's how this whole thing started. That 19-point gem.
It was a good performance. I don't think we have to find a way to knock Kemba because of the way he played.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I see John's
You're gonna throw this in Kemba's face.
Type of performance that you want to see out of Kemba regularly, but you don't. So,
I'm not even saying that. I'm saying he did things. Yeah, we're not comparing the two players. It's ridiculous.
No, I get what you're saying.
We're not doing that at all. All I'm saying is
you are.
Kemba can't get to the basket. Teague got to the basket. You love to see it. That's it. You're done. Yeah. How many guys attack the basket? So few. Jaylen and then Teague tonight. That's it. That's the whole season. Yeah. And Kemba tries, but he just gets swallowed up in there. So that was encouraging the way he got his points. It wasn't one of those fluky, like, oh, he hit every jumper and a bunch of threes sort of games. It was like he was getting after it. It was, like I said, great to see. Whether he can repeat it again, not like this, but if you were getting 70% of this from Teague, everyone would be like,
that would go a long way. But I think a lot of the time, especially in the beginning, that first quarter, he was constantly looking for teammates. So I feel like the Grizzlies were sort of giving him that space, and it looked good, because he was able to get in there and get in the paint. And there were some instances where I'm like, all right, just go for the layup. You're right there. But then it was leading to open threes and good looks. And then he started picking his time when to attack. And all of a sudden the Grizzlies were like, oh, wait, now he's scoring. Oh, yeah, Teague, he can do this from time to time. Boom, 2 or 3 3-pointers. What was it, 5 for 5 in the first half. And all of a sudden he's rolling. And the offense was him penetrating. But I'm with you, John. Yeah, that's true. Because sometimes it's like what we talked about the other day, right? The Celtics sometimes when they want to attack, they're not really getting into the paint. They're not really getting into the teeth of the defense. And Teague did a really good job doing that tonight.
So I thought what Teague did well was, like Josue said, he moved the ball around, but he also, when he smelled blood, he would attack. He would go for his shot, or he would drive to the hoop. And I thought he was aggressive but controlled. Whereas, like, if you want to compare anyone tonight, I mean, you could say Smart was like the opposite of Teague down the stretch, where he was kind of, went back to, shooting Marcus, the Marcus that everybody wants to yank off the court. So. And to be honest, it was
what happens to him in these times, Jimmy? What happens in his brain?
It just flips a switch, and he feels like he needs to take over the game.
He's like, "This is a good idea," what happens there?
That turnover.
It was
felt like
whoever wanted to have the ball, and then ended up Marcus Smart was the one that ended up taking all those ridiculous shots.
That turnover felt like he froze in like a dream or something and couldn't stop himself from losing the ball. I don't know what he was doing.
It was like an off switch.
Yeah.
It was like somebody flipped the off switch in his back and he just stopped and his arms fell to his side and the guy took the ball and went the other way. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So Jeff Teague per 36 minutes, and I was looking at this earlier in the year, he's similar to Mike Conley, Jamal Murray, really good point guards in terms of getting to the line per 36 minutes. And he gets to the line 7 times again tonight. That's the one thing I'm willing to apologize on him for, is he's great at that, getting downhill, getting to the rim, playing that kind of role. The problem is, and this is always something we run into when a guy comes off the bench and does great, gets a lot of opportunity, are you going to be able to put him in this position again and again? With Kemba out, with Tatum out, he was on the ball a ton from the beginning minutes of this game. And that honestly is what we're looking at, is what he needs to succeed. A ton of looks on the ball, dribbling, isolation. He's the king of isolation. Like he's used it as much as percentage-wise as anybody in the league this year. So are you going to commit to Jeff Teague being on the ball as your point guard all the time? This team obviously isn't going to. So where can you get success from him? When he's off the ball, he's dead. He's useless.
We just keep going back and forth here because, this is what's tricky. And again, I'm just seeing this on the NBC broadcast. 80 points in the paint when we were like, that's a lot, right? Most against the Celtics since 1998.
Wow.
That's what I thought. I was like, it's gotta be.
I was like, that's a huge number, right?
Right. I was like, that's a record breaker. Yeah.
That's back when the offense just spacing was standing around the paint on all 5 sides.
98. That had to be one of their worst teams ever.
Oh God.
That was right before Pierce.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I think that was before. Was that before Antoine, or was he 99?
No, I think Antoine was that was his second year, second or
98
third year.
Oh yeah, he's 97.
It's D Brown, it's DeClerc, it's Edney, it's Purvis Ellison, Travis Knight.
Wait, no, I think that was the year. I think they traded for Kenny.
Kenny Anderson's in there too. I don't know if that's what was Chauncey's first. When did
that was later on.
Is that Chauncey's first year? Yeah, that's Chauncey's first year. That's the Chauncey Ray Mercer. That's the Chauncey Ray Mercer year.
Yeah, Billups and Mercer, 3 and 6.
Mercer.
Didn't they trade Kenny Anderson for Chauncey Billups?
Traded Mercer almost right out of the gate.
No, they traded Billups right away.
Yeah. Oh, traded Billups right away. Yep.
Yeah. And then he didn't want to play in Toronto, so they flipped.
1998.
Can I say this too?
No.
I don't think so.
Just to throw this at Nick.
Save it. Now save it.
All
It's
right.
a team
No,
thing,
go ahead.
isn't it?
Say it. Just kidding.
Well, I was gonna say throwing this at Nick. 1998. You're jamming yourself into the paint for 80 points every game. I know that's the high end of things then, but you're watching this tonight. Ja Morant can throw a skip pass from one corner when the defense is throwing it to the left to the other side for a wide open three. How many guys could do that in 1998? And I'm just imagining all 5 of these guys jamming themselves into the post to get that many points. I mean, people think the NBA stinks today, but I look at a game like this versus whatever that was in 1998, and give me this 10 times out of 10.
NBA doesn't stink. It's just like I said. It's just too many threes.
Rod Strickland would do that in his sleep, kid. you know about Rod Strickland.
Basketball's prettier when you work for twos than it is jacking threes. It's prettier if you can work passing and
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to watch any highlights from the Celtics 1998 team. You'd be like, yeah, this is ugly basketball.
That's ugly.
But generally speaking, it probably wasn't always like that.
Yeah. Right.
That was technically the year right when Jordan left, so things were dark,
Right. Dark days.
Dark days.
So I guess we could get right into the Gordon stuff because I think
you sound so excited about it.
Well, no, I mean, look, it's interesting, right? It's so the reports are many at this point, but they're kind of all over the place. Celtics considered front runners for Aaron Gordon, though. A couple people who reported it are also like it's not close. I guess the skinny at this point is Celtics got to 2 firsts, which gets them in line with what Houston had offered, which was the clubhouse leader in terms of best offer on the table so far for Gordon. And Gordon doesn't want to go there because he wants to go for a team that has a shot at contending, and obviously Houston's not one of them. So Celtics seem to. I mean, again, Celtics seem to edge ahead there. You might
Jimmy.
You will extend with the Celtics because they are clearly in a path.
Nobody wants to go to Houston right now.
Nobody wants to go to Houston. I also perplexed by the move by Houston. What are you doing? What are you trading 4 people for? You just dumped people to get these picks. Now you're going to give them away. Are you nuts? So I don't get it. And
they should be collecting at this point. Just collect pieces everywhere.
Also, Houston's picks have to be heavily, heavily protected because they're not going to give away a fucking top 5 pick, which they're going to get top 2 pick they're going to get in the next year or two. Right. So that's going to be a can you got to kick down the road, which Memphis has to consider as well. The protections on that will probably stretch those picks out for another 5, 6, 7 years, which means the Celtics get it. That's fine, right? Where this gets weird and wrinkly is like now you need to get Evan Fournier is involved in it as well, potentially, and that the Celtics need to offer a player. And when you start to do the math here, there's some people who are saying like, well, in order to make it work, you might have to do Tristan and Smart and part of your TPE to get Fournier and Gordon in here. And at that point, it's like, what are we doing? Like,
right.
The 2 picks.
But you called this, John. You called it in the very beginning. When everyone got excited about the TPE talk, what was the first thing that came out of your mouth? You're going to take another team's garbage along with the guy that you want so badly. Right? It's like deja vu, remember? And like, here we are. And now watch the Celtics fans get upset at one of their favorite prospects or younger Celtics players is on the move. And then think to themselves, well, why didn't Danny do something before? Because that's what happens when you have the TPE.
But here's the question, because this is for you guys. So what do you think? So this is where it gets sticky. Like we're debating it on the thread. I'm all over the place on this. Like I would do, even though I don't love Gordon. And again, Jimmy asked this question. I don't know what he's good at.
Jimmy loves Gordon now.
I don't know what he's good at. I know he has a great athletic profile. He's a switchable defender, kind of an athletic 4. He can allow you to play different sorts of lineups in there, which is great. He's not an elite shooter. He's actually not an elite defender when he switches on legitimate threes. He can't keep them in front of him by any means.
Cool.
He's passable in that regard. I saw some statistic that he's one of the worst, if not the worst, high usage pick and roll players in the NBA right now. So there's a lot of things he's not great at, but he can jump and he's athletic and he's only 26. And you think, and I think, again, everyone's like, well, he shot 40% from three this year before this recent stretch where he's gone like 3 for his last 20 post-ankle injury, and that's depressed the stats a little. And I think people are locking into that 40 from three almost the same way we did with Marcus Smart a couple years ago when he ticked up to about 36, 37. Everyone's like, well, if he
40.
shoots that well, he's a totally different player. I think you're hoping Gordon is more than he is, but I don't know if he is that yet. What do you guys think just of the player, Gordon, before we get into the deals?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
So I did text you guys. I was like, what does Aaron Gordon actually do well? And I don't know if there's one thing that stands out like way above the rest, but I will say, in order to convince myself that this was a good idea for the Celtics, I just did what anybody would do. I just typed in Aaron Gordon highlights on YouTube, and I just started watching them.
You got the best of the best.
And positive vibes only. I don't want to see anything he does wrong. I just want to see everything he does well. And the one thing that I will say, based on the only awesome things I saw, this guy
half of it was the dunk contest.
This guy's dangerous in the paint. He's a force driving to the basket. He's somebody that you don't want to get in the way of. He does play above the rim. I think that he does have like that aggressiveness, like that presence that we always are saying, like, why doesn't Jaylen drive? Why doesn't Tatum drive? Why don't these guys drive and create contact and, get to the line and all that stuff? I think Aaron Gordon has that ability. Get the big frame. He can play that 4 position well. And I think, you guys already mentioned it, like it allows him to do a couple of different things on defense. So those are like the Aaron Gordon positives. Now, he can't shoot. He's going to be one of those players where if he's taking 3-pointers, you're basically like, why? You probably don't want him taking threes or taking those long twos.
It's going to be like Marcus taking threes.
Exactly. So that's where you're going to have to like the pros and the cons there.
Some will go in, but you don't really want him. He doesn't make you better shooting team.
I don't think that's why they want him. I think if he does what he can do well, which is, gets him full steam ahead, him and Rob out there at the same time. I mean, those are two guys that would be, pretty big forces, above the rim there. So there might be some positives to it. But obviously, when you're talking about a TPE type guy and this time of year, there are certainly going to be players available that have their flaws. So I'm sure that, he checks off all those boxes too.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it has to do with what's in his arsenal, right? He doesn't do anything particularly great, but his athleticism, what he can do defensively, his capabilities. I think Brad sees that and says, I can work with that. That's a significant upgrade to Semi Ojeleye or maybe even Grant Williams. I know Grant had a good game tonight, but, he hasn't been able to get consistency from that 4 spot. And I think it's getting to a point where he's like, look, I need to get a guy who I know I can transform into that player that I need him to be. And I'm not surprised that these various reports are saying that the Celtics were interested in not only Aaron Gordon this year, but the last 2 years, right?
That's crazy to me.
Deadline. And that doesn't surprise me because when Brad Stevens or Danny Ainge, like when they have a guy in mind or someone on the radar, like that guy's going to stick around for 3+ years or whatever the case may be. We don't really even know because sometimes Danny Ainge will say for one player, but we don't know. He could have been drooling over another one for 7+ years. I mean, like, I just think his age is also a big part of this as well. He's only 25 years old. And he has a health history or an injury history, but I just think in the open floor, in transition, what he can do for you defensively, I just think the Celtics see a lot of different options there, and they like what they see.
It is interesting, too, because that's obviously the Marcus draft, and that's where you wanted to land top 3 there, and you couldn't get in there. And the reports were that the Celtics definitely liked Gordon, and if he were available at 6, they might have taken him. He went 4. Also, they were really rumored Danny was apparently in love with Dante Exum, who went 5, so thankfully that didn't happen. But Gordon seems like a guy that's been on his radar the whole time.
That's right.
Yeah, Exum was 5. That was the
Marcus was 6. Yeah,
that was the Wiggins Jabari Embiid draft. Which was crazy. And then Randall goes right behind Smart that year as well.
This guy fits the profile of others they've liked in the past.
But they like that athlete,
Jaylen Brown. Yeah,
that athletic
right. And remember people said about Jaylen before he was drafted? Oh, he can't shoot. Oh, he won't be a top-notch scorer.
Gordon's been in the league since 2014 now.
Yeah. So here's the problem with Gordon.
He's been around for a bit, And his game hasn't evolved. Here's the thing. If he's not something now, I don't think he's going to, despite his age, if he's not something now, I don't know that he's going to be it. Because again, while
I disagree with that because he's
only
not going to.
26. Do you see his game evolving much? He's been in the league since 2014.
I do.
He would need to develop that outside shot.
More? You think so?
He would need to do. He would need to develop it. I mean, like, Blake Griffin needed to develop an outside shot, or like Al Horford needed to develop.
Griffin would be the best case scenario, by far. He's
not going to be Griffin. That's out the window. That was the comparison early on with him.
Best case scenario.
That's what he would need to do in order to get to that level.
Yeah.
What you want to see from him is more catch and shoot productivity, which he hasn't been able to do in Orlando. More cutting. You completely eliminate the pick and roll, as you mentioned, out of his game, John. That's not something he's going to be able to create, and he's not a phenomenal ball handler, shot creator off the dribble. And if you look at his stats right now, his efficiency, that's where all of the stuff has had to come from, especially in recent years where they've had injuries, guys moving in and out of the lineup, and an increased reliability on a guy like him, or reliance on a guy like him to create all their offense. And that's never who he was. That's not who he should be in this league. So you imagine him cutting back line for the Celtics, finding open space on the floor for shots, probably playing more roll man than ball handler in the pick and roll. You want him to do completely different things than he's ever done in his career, which is going to shift his productivity away from what he's been bad at in Orlando because they need him to do it and they're a bad team, to being with other creators and other scorers on the Celtics. He'll be like a third or fourth option on the Celtics, whereas he was a first or second on the Magic.
I know, but again, this is again where it comes down to cost. So if you're talking about Gordon just for 2 firsts, seems okay. He maybe not worth that, but I know Bobby's ready to ship out 7 firsts if it takes it. So look, if it's 2 firsts or 2 firsts and Nesmith or Romeo, it still might be considered an overpay, but you might have to do it anyway. If that's what that deal is. So let's say it's
they're doing it to sign him then, right? You're saying with the idea they're gonna. So does that mean that they would value extending him
over Marcus,
signing him over Smart then?
Yeah, and then you've got
that's
right.
kind of what it comes down to, right?
A good question. 6'3" versus 6'8", different positions.
Which is why it's interesting. Smart being included in this may so this is where it's interesting. At face value, moving Smart doesn't seem to make you better. But if you know you're not going to re-sign Smart next year and you are going to try to re-sign Gordon, then you lose nothing by doing that because you weren't going to re-sign him anyway. Right. So you're getting something there, taking on some more salary and trying to play little cap gymnastics there to make it work. Maybe Smart's the chip to send over that you can also take Tristan, and that's why it's a bigger deal. And that's why all of those pieces are included. It seems messy, and I don't know if it makes you better. If it's Fournier.
Not only is it messy, they're bordering with this kind of deal in the getting in trouble with the league for cap circumvention, because this isn't a TPE deal, especially as it's being structured by Matt Moore. You'd have to stretch this out into 3 different trades. And if you're effectively trying to make 3 little trades in the 1 TPE trade, the NBA might come down. They probably won't at this point, but they could and say, you're just trying to jump around the cap and do some funky stuff here. Ultimately, I think the cleanest, best way to do this that the Celtics have to hold out on is just sending some pieces and picks for Gordon.
Send the picks for Gordon straight up and use the TPE, and that's it. That's your game.
And I don't know, why did the Magic want Smart? That's so surprising to me.
I don't know. What is interesting, the only other piece that makes it fit if you do the larger deal is Kemba. And he wasn't discussed, but things get interesting there. Because if you do move Kemba, maybe you can sign Smart and extend Theis and Gordon. And things are different for you.
And if you're Orlando, that's not a terrible thing.
That's not a terrible route. Right.
Like for a couple of years, it's not like you're locked in for 4. You're not getting the whole max deal. So
yeah,
I mean, for someone who obviously can still put up, buckets, can still produce, he won't be your number 1 option. It's all about how they feel about those 2 years. If they can actually still make the playoffs in those 2 years with Kemba at the point, and I don't see why not if that's their overall goal. I don't know.
My question is, where is this report coming out coming out of? Like, who's the one?
Well,
Because rarely does it happen this way, right?
Well, you had Amick at first. The other one is Matt Moore.
And Keith too. But like what I'm saying is like who are they talking to? Are they talking to Bill Duffy, like Aaron Gordon's agent? Like, I mean, I can't imagine it benefits Danny Ainge or anyone on the Celtics side to leak that information. I don't know why it would benefit.
I would guess it's the Orlando's camp putting this out.
I assume it's Orlando's, and it might not even be real to sweeten the pot to get something else somewhere else. So you say Boston's got 2 firsts. Who else is coming to the table? You got 3 days here. So absolutely, a lot of this could be misdirection. So we're talking about it hypothetically. It's more, would you do it? Whether or not it's real or close, who knows at this point. If you're Danny, though, can you afford to blink? So at this point, like, let's say in the offseason, we don't know if he was waiting out Gordon in Indiana and that ended up backfiring and you weren't able to get anything there, and you got stuck. And now you're in a situation where you know if you do this, you've got it, but you're holding out hope, hoping it's only this. Can he afford to do that? Like, if it's, if you're trying hard to not include a thing, but you know that thing's going to get it done, do you do it? And that could be Romeo or whatever. Who the hell knows what that third piece is? Romeo, be a player. I'm not saying, you know what I mean, but
yeah, I don't think the framework that's being discussed is getting enough value for Smart. The only reason you would trade Marcus Smart is getting enough value for him. And I don't think this is it, especially if you're taking money back on. If you have to flip a guy like Tristan Thompson to make this work, it's just too complicated and overdone, I think, for it to clearly be an upgrade for the Celtics. And that's what they have to do with this deal. Drop off the assets that they don't necessarily want to. If you're going straight to the top for this and still holding on to additional picks and young wings on the roster, I'm not sure you're definitively better. Gordon might be a better option in the future, more worthwhile spending your money on, stuff like that. But you're losing your top playmaker, your top defender right now, and a volume shooter. And that's a big difference right now when we compare these two as shooters, Gordon and Smart. Smart's willing to take 11 to 15 threes a game off the dribble, and that can be valuable. It can be on any given night, especially in the playoffs. Like, Gordon's not and I know he did it against Brooklyn on Friday, but he's very rarely going to be a guy who's spotting up, taking 8 to 15 threes and winning a game for you like that. So I think Smart's, if you're just talking 1-for-1 Smart for Gordon, I still think Smart's more valuable in a vacuum. But if you're talking about moving that value to the wing with a bigger body and maybe a guy who could improve his potential here, I guess it might be worth it. But as far as this Fournier, Gordon, Smart, Thompson thing goes, plus 2 first-round picks, I think the Celtics lose that deal.
But it's cap gymnastics, and again, this is what's frustrating here is, I know they're hard capped, and you have to find ways to make it work, but this is what this all comes down to at this point, and it might not make you necessarily better, but it's cap gymnastics and looking ahead to the future.
Right. Yeah, but Bobby's point, I agree with, is, you bring in a guy like Gordon and let's say you ship out Smart, you're running into the same issue you had when Smart was injured. You have all these guys that don't distribute, they don't play make, and you're asking them to all do something that they don't typically do, or it doesn't make them great. So it's almost like you might make the deal for one reason and it might help you in one way, but then maybe it hurts you in another way. I mean, I don't, when I look at Brown, Tatum, and Smart, it's very obvious to me that something is not clicking with these guys. I mean, they're all like thinly veiled, like calling each other out or something over the last week. Like, everyone needs to step up and take responsibility and all this stuff. It's like, it hasn't worked over the last couple of years. I don't know if it's just gonna click with them. So maybe a shakeup like that is what they need. Again, I don't know if it makes sense from the X's and O's standpoint and how everyone fits with each other on the court. But from a personality standpoint, maybe this is the type of a little shakeup that they need to get the ball rolling in the other direction. That's the only reason I can think Smart would be included.
Sam Amick just kind of doubled down on Matt Moore's report, as was first reported. And he's saying, again, the way this is structured, as Bobby said, was going to be complex with multiple teams and multiple deals to make it work, because you can't really do what they're proposing to do, but it would involve Smart going over and it would involve Fournier coming here. So again, that's in the full exception. So
that could make it more enticing if you bring in a point guard, probably worse than Smart, through some third team. You start to think about this a little bit more, and the Magic are probably happier bringing in whatever fits in for Gordon's spot, because Smart's a wing, but he's really a guard. I don't think he'd be filling like a regular wing spot for them. So I don't know if Denver would get involved with some of the pieces they have to give up to various players here. I know they have a backup point guard that would probably help the Celtics a little bit, wings that they're willing to give up on the Orlando side, and they've been involved in these conversations. The key right now is Portland, because I think if Portland gives up Gary Trent, this is done.
They're not saying, I mean, right now, and again, Amex says it, and I know this was what Matt Moore reported as well. It's only Denver right now that's in play, and Boston's clearly ahead. So
yeah, but does Denver shift to being facilitator in that position?
I don't know if Portland is in the mix anymore. Again, just the way it's being reported. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but that's what you're looking at this point. So take that for what it's worth.
I'll say this
from Orlando, man. Like, there's so many options that it's just like doesn't really, like, when you're talking about someone like Marcus Smart, you're just like, yeah, Gordon's probably the best. He's the best piece out of that group. But after that, I think it's maybe not a significant drop off, but like, who's really excited about those pieces?
Well, why does everybody hate Fournier?
He's been the 2 straight postseasons and did absolutely nothing in both.
I know, but I mean, I think people are sleeping on like his numbers. And again, I know you're doing it on a bad team, but like, you realize he's averaging 19 points a game, and last year he averaged 8. Like, this is a double-digit scorer. I mean, it's not, you're not grabbing a guy who's a back end of the rotation bench fodder. I mean, it is a legitimate, 30 minutes a game. He's averaging 19 points, 45% field goal, 38 from 3. This is not bad. I mean, last
it's worse than Smart though, isn't it?
What's that?
It's worse than Smart, because that's effectively what he would become on this team.
All of a sudden now you have 4 wings and a couple. I mean,
but then he's gone, right?
Yeah, I'm saying just this year, your lineup becomes completely different now, where all of a sudden you've got 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", all over the court all the time, which again, the style that they like to play. You do theoretically have a bit more spacing, because at least it's Fournier over Semi Ojeleye. You have bench scoring, you have other things. You lose your facilitator. That's a problem.
So this is how people have to think about that too. And I think you do have a point there, John, is that in this trade, you would effectively be trading Tristan for Fournier, which I think people could live with. And then Smart for Gordon, which people might have a tougher time living with. But those two trade-offs could effectively make you better. Yeah,
those are the trade-offs. And then you don't have to worry about Tristan next year, and you don't really want to deal with that. And you might use that money to re-sign other people. So it's not just what you do now; it's what it allows you to keep down the road. So I think there are a lot of pieces involved here, which is why it's a complicated deal. But you're right. At the end of the day, people are just going to look at it and be like, "We gave up Smart," and that's going to look. We talked about this yesterday. You do a trade. It's going to hurt a little. So in order to get somebody, it's not like I said, Jimmy.
This would get so weird cap-wise.
I've been joking all year. You're not just sliding a piece of paper across the table and say, "Here you go, give me a player for this money, for this piece of paper that says 28.4 on it."
Here? This is IOU. Okay.
It's gonna hurt. And Smart, that's gonna hurt a lot of people. And I don't know if it makes you better. And now everyone's gonna debate Collins versus Gordon, and we did that. Are there other? If you're gonna give up Smart, is Gordon the best you can get there? It seems like the Celtics are fixated on him. We went through it yesterday.
I like your Lonzo Ball idea. I like that one.
I mean, that's my favorite one, and I would do that like that, and I would extend him before I would extend Gordon, but that's me. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, if you're paying this premium now, if it's a couple of picks and Smart, and you think that could get you a different guy, is Gordon the guy you want?
I'm just not crazy about it. I like the idea of pairing those guys together,
Yeah.
Again, there's another tier of talented players that I think Marcus Smart could be a centerpiece of a package deal along with those picks, But, it's like what you said. Danny's up against it because next year, that contract gets a little hard to trade. I mean, I guess it all depends on who you're trading for and which team is willing to take on an expiring deal. But
yeah. Well, Gordon's going at this point. He's demanded the trade, and he's going somewhere. So this is your shot to get him if you want him effectively. I don't think there's any way they take him back in. In fact, he's probably played his last game with Orlando after the events of today. So he's going somewhere. It's just going to be, is it you? Are you going to be able to hold this out and get the price that you want? And I do think what works in Boston's favor is if Orlando's trading it into the TPE, they get to cut all that money outright. And I think that's an advantage for a team like Orlando. Like, do they want to take back Smart and Thompson and do all this stuff? Not ideally, I don't think. And so, like, what's the benefit there for them? So we ask who this comes from. I don't know if it's from Orlando. It might be from Gordon, who wants to get out of there and wants to get to Boston, which could be an advantage for the Celtics too.
I don't know. Gordon, that'd be pretty high-level GMing from Gordon to be able to put this together and throw out the rumor and, like, do all the cap math, you know? Like, it's a pretty sophisticated
this is what still makes no sense for me, because this would effectively be Gordon for 2 firsts, Thompson for maybe like a second and a second deal, and then Smart for Fournier, which I think the NBA looks at that and it's like, what are you guys doing here? Like, I think you're going to need a third team.
It sounds like they might, and that might just be, you know, right, an intermediary to.
And maybe that makes this make more sense for everyone involved. Because if you're Orlando, are you trading Gordon when you have other chances to deal him here for 2 Celtics first, Thompson, who signed for 2 years, and Smart, who's probably going to leave after a year? It's not ideal.
I think this is your best shot to trade Gordon now for them. So I think their best offer they're going to get is going to be here at the deadline versus in the offseason. And I think that's why they're looking to do it, which is we talked about teams suffering from paralysis, you know, like
they would have to
do nothing and then just kind of wait and see if something better comes along, unless somebody has a gun to your head, you know, and that's where you end up getting cornered. You know, because you're like, crap, I'm out of options here, and you could just lose an asset for nothing. I think Orlando has decided we're okay trading him. Where are we going to get the best deal? Now or in the offseason? And I think it's now. So I think they are serious about making the move. It's just, again, from a Celtics perspective, what does it do for you? I don't know. I don't know.
The thing is, if their guys demanding a trade, I mean, how much power does Orlando have right now? I mean, really,
that's true.
Need to get rid of him, right? So
what have we learned about players and trades? Like, they go where they want to go.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the real encouraging thing about this, that it seems like he wants to be in Boston?
Versus the other suitors at this moment. Yes. Yeah. When it's Houston, it's like, you know, you know.
Oh, what a weird trade that would have been. Oladipo for Gordon. And then I would have been banging on the table. Why couldn't they get this done? So I ultimately want to see something like this get done. And I think Jared Weiss threw this around on Celtics Beat that you could still get involved on Collins if you're able to retain some assets there. So maybe that's why you dump Smart here, keep all the other assets, and try to wiggle something out on the other side. Because if you get Collins, Gordon, and keep the core here, then all of a sudden I think you feel a little better about this being a team that's closer to a championship.
That was Jared's. But that one's expensive. You go deep into the tax. So
this is going to bring you into the tax too.
And this is the question, is we talked about it. Like, I mean, the reality is, you know, these aren't, you know, the Celtics ownership group is not the deepest pockets in the NBA. And you just lost a year's worth of gate revenue. Are you going to be the Lakers and the Nets and Golden State and one of those franchises paying, you know, tens of millions into the tax? You know, you're talking 8-figure tax bill every single year. I don't know if they're prepared to do that.
Well, this is for the 2,000 people that get in 2 weeks. They have to buy as much beer as possible. Just like 15 rounds.
CLNS Media is not advocating excessive alcohol consumption. I just want that to be known. Okay.
Well, what I suggested to
load up on chicken fingers, but spend some money, buy some souvenirs that could get you into the luxury tax. Okay?
what I suggested to you guys was, what if we started a GoFundMe for Wick and the ownership group?
Right.
Every fan puts.
That's what we do in America.
Because John likes to remind us they're like one of the poorest ownership groups going, so they might need a couple of bucks to kick them into tax can gear.
They're like, right, you know, they could be like,
could that happen? They could do that.
CLNS bailout fund.
Could the Celtics accept a GoFund? They couldn't accept that, could they?
Let's do it.
a fan run GoFundMe to go.
How much
into
would it
the
be worth
tap
to you? I'd kick in. I'd give you $10.
Yeah. I'll toss it.
Well,
Every
everyone
fan
does
gives
that.
$10.
Give me $10 for Aaron Gordon, for John Collins next year.
What would we call it?
Throw
The
Collins
fan
a max
exception?
deal.
Yeah,
Fan player, the
$10.
player fan exception?
Yep.
we could do it.
I mean, this is what drives me crazy here.
But we got to do it every year. It's a membership. You got to pay every year.
All right, Celtics fans.
It's
You
a
heard it here
recurring
first.
3 or 4 year membership.
No, this is it. I got it, guys. 10%. Everyone who got a stimulus check, you get 10% of your check goes to the Celtics.
That's an interesting
If
coincidence.
you got it, hang on to it, man, because I don't know anything about coming. Hang on to it.
Someday,
Yes.
when our video goes behind a paywall, because like we get like crazy subs, we'll just put a percentage of that subscription to the Celtics GoFundMe account. So we're actually contributing to their roster while we critique their roster. I know.
So that's what we got, man. It's interesting. It's interesting. It seems like this is it, but it's now we're getting close. Jimmy, it's past 45 minutes. I will give you an option to say sayonara. if guys, you want to hang for a little while longer and keep going, we got a lot of people here watching, so I don't mind continuing on. But Jimmy, I'll let you say, like I said, at any point.
We'll do 10 more minutes and then I'll
10 more minutes. All right,
All right,
do 10.
we'll take it to an hour and we're gonna call it here. But I mean,
let's talk about tax for a second, seriously though, because
I don't know enough about it.
Well, this is gonna. All you need to know is that,
dude, tax season. Come on.
All you need to know is that adding Gordon the way we want to is gonna push you into the tax. So all of a sudden, you're paying tax in a year that you want to avoid it, and then doing what we suggested with Collins would push you deep into the tax. But that's kind of what you need to do in this league to win a championship.
Let me ask you this, Bobby: is it possible? And again, Hans, one of our regulars here, who watches every show, and thank you all of you that do.
I recognize that bird all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a great name too, username. But Collins and Bogdan,
Simpsons, right?
Huh? It's a Simpsons. It's the little wrinkly guy.
Yeah.
I'm 32 years old. He looks like he's 120.
Oh.
So
that's a great name.
Yeah, Hans Molman. So the Collins and Bogdan is the other theoretical trade that's similar to this in terms of pieces, right? A team that isn't sure they want to re-sign a guy and they want to get rid of another contract, and this is similar-ish, even though Bogdan is not expiring like Fournier. But is that a better? Is that also involves potentially Smart and other pieces? Is that deal better for the Celtics? Is that pair better for them? Because it seems like the framework is in the ballpark similar.
It feels like that's what they want to do first, right? And then
not sure, but I wonder also if they think that they can. If you said your scenario, Bobby, of hey, who knows, maybe they get competitive and sign him anyway. Sign him to an offer sheet anyway, that they're holding off on Collins because they think they
what they would do effectively is trade for the $5 million now. This is the real sneaky cap way to add as much as they possibly can before they just jump into the tax and can't add anything forever. You trade for $5 million now that becomes $25 million or whatever it would be when you re-sign them. So you'd have to trade for Collins. The Celtics can't offer him an offer sheet. They have no cap space. So you'd have to do that now. And then Gordon can slide in on the TPE. So Bogdan would be out of the picture on this one. The tricky thing is, reports are saying today, and I know Jared alluded to this on Celtics Beat, is that the Hawks start asking for Brown. So then all of a sudden you're just like, all right, we're done. Like, there's just no point at that point. But if you could somehow give up everything to Atlanta, maybe all the other picks, all the other young players, and somehow get them off that, you could maybe add give up Rob would probably be the central piece of that one. You could add Collins and Gordon now and carry them into the future. And then your core is Gordon, Collins, Brown, Tatum, and that would be it at that point.
Not horrible.
Which one's better for you guys?
All your picks are gone. Bobby?
Which deal is better, the Collins one or the Gordon one?
Probably Gordon.
Guys,
I mean, for Smart though,
Collins is the best player
because you don't have to max him immediately, and you've got him at a manageable salary for a couple of years.
Well, what I mean about that is if it's Smart, it's Collins. But if you're just able to do like a more prospect and picks driven deal, I do Gordon. I'm out on the Smart and Fournier thing. I don't like that.
Wow. That's it. He called it. Time of death. 12:29. Bobby's out.
Yeah. I think they're giving up way too much.
Done.
Yeah.
And the thing with Danny's gone on the radio a couple of times and basically said that like they're not interested in trading for players that are in the last year of their deal because they're not willing to.
Well, you have to think of it as Thompson for Fournier, which is like what you have to position yourself over. Even though that wouldn't be how the math would add up, it's effectively Thompson for Fournier.
No, I meant Collins for the Collins deal.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're doing that, you're re-signing him, right? That's the only reason you would do it.
Right. And I guess in that sense, they would probably assume that he would take them. He would sign for the max. So they're not trading for a player that they think is going to get more money than that player deserves, I guess. But I don't know. I haven't heard or seen it that the Celtics are like head over heels about Collins. And I mean, honestly, in the games that I've watched him play, he's been hit or miss. I mean, I'm not like, oh, you got to do everything you can to get Collins. I'm not in this. I don't need to keep Marcus Smart either. Like, I'm completely fine with him being traded in the right deal. I don't think they should just give him away just to like shake it up. I mean, I think it would need to make sense, but by no means is he like this untouchable player or like the winning plays mentality where it's like he's worth so much to them. I do think that he is important to them, but if you're calling the season a wash, anyways, if you're pretty much chalking it up to they're not going to win the title this year, then the value of Marcus Smart goes down considerably because now you've only got 1 year left with him. You're probably not going to re-sign him. At least that's not what it sounds like based on the way the roster's constructed. So now you can start thinking about, okay, well, what can you get for him while you still can't?
I like Collins, I think, in this scenario, if the two were on the table, but that's me.
Let me reframe this because the TP effectively is replacing Hayward, right? So now you're going to give up Smart to replace Hayward, and you're giving up 2 for 1, and the one's Gordon. Think of it in that sense, and
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and then you're paying 2 firsts on top of it.
That's what happens. Again, this is what we've been saying from the beginning is the TPE alone is not going to get you your Hayward replacement. You have to fold it in with another player. And so that player in this case appears to be Marcus Smart plus first-round picks. So it's basically you lost Hayward for Smart and 2 first-round picks, and to get Gordon. So I mean,
and I obviously don't care about the picks, but
everyone's like, Danny did it again. He got a TPE out of the deal. We're like,
which is a crazy bad deal. It was, Gordon Hayward for Gordon Hayward and for Marcus Smart. You give up Smart, Gordon Hayward, 2 first-round picks for Aaron Gordon. That's horrible.
And let's think, And let's think of what the road.
Gordon Hayward. That's why we were saying, or John, that's what you were saying. I would have overpaid for him. I would have given him whatever he wanted because
that's exactly right. Because it's better than this. Yeah, better than this.
Zach will do that in his thing again today. He loves talking about that. That if the Celtics wanted Turner, it was done. Like they just had to pull the trigger. And I believe low. Like there's a lot of ardent Celtics people out there who are like, he was going to Charlotte no matter what.
No, give me a break. All of that stuff bothers me.
That's Hayward trying to give goodwill to the Hornets fans.
It's not true. There's no way Charlotte was his dream destination. I think he
wanted to go to Indy.
He was thrilled to go to Indy, and I also don't know that the money was real here in Boston. And I do think if right from the gate you say 4 and 30 done, he doesn't even talk to anybody else, and they don't extend it, and they just sign the deal. So I believe if they wanted him, they could have signed him at that money, and I believe if they wanted to trade him,
I don't know about that one. I believe in the role stuff being an issue for him.
I think you can say that afterwards because it makes sense. It's one of those, it's like Rob's hip. It's true, but it wasn't the reason, okay?
Yeah.
It's true, but it's not the reason. That's my opinion there.
And if I'm pressed, I'll bring it up.
Right, and it'll make sense because the narrative fits that I can go here and what this helps explain it better because it's going to tell it's also a little dig at the Celtics on the way out. Oh, I could be myself here. He would have been happy to be whatever version of his cheese shop going self he was here for $30 million if the Celtics gave it to him. No question about it. I refuse to accept that, and I refuse to accept that Indiana trade wasn't there. So I think that this is I don't know how much more. This was a massive botch by Danny beginning, and Jimmy just laid it out perfectly. The price you're paying for that disaster is having to give all of this stuff to play catch up. They've been playing catch up since Kyrie walked, with Kemba selling out players, giving away picks to get rid of players, to get under the cap, to be able to do these things. I mean,
that's a good point.
Look at everything they've hemorrhaged just to make up for guys leaving. It's a disaster.
Wick pretty much said that too.
I think one of the most overlooked.
Kyrie messed the whole thing up because they're just dumping players and picks and players and picks.
Think even the most minor one. They picked Grant Williams over some other guys just to creep back a few spots to sign Kemba. And who knows what they could have gotten in that draft. But that draft obviously ended up being a disaster because of that. I think Thibault was the guy they gave up, right? Probably rather have Thibault than Grant.
I think that when they re-signed Jaylen, people don't understand how crucial that was, because Jaylen could essentially just been like, you know what? I'm just going to showcase myself and see what's out there. I don't know what you guys have in store for me. Okay, yeah, Kyrie's not here anymore. I like that. But, I don't know if you're going to put me on the same level as Tatum, or if you even see me, envision me to make that ascension. And they obviously bought into him, and it obviously paid off, because I think Jaylen could have made a whole lot more money elsewhere. And of course, they got him on was going to easily be a bargain in a couple of years.
Yeah. So
this is a topic for another day, but it's great that they did that. That was completely necessary. But they still need to figure out if Tatum and Brown are a tandem of the future, because I haven't seen enough to say that they are.
That's why I've been pushing so hard for a deal too, because I think they've got such undue. Look at Jaylen tonight. He had to take like 8 spot-up threes around screens. Is that Jaylen's game? Not really, but out of necessity, this is where the rosters put those guys. Tatum has to be a 35-minute a game facilitator, which you obviously eventually want him to be, but he's 22. He's only been doing that for a year. So all the questions that this season has generated about are Brown and Tatum the guys is so frustrating to me, because I think it's a product of the team that's been around them. I just think the reason I'm against this deal, if you think about the missing 5th piece in all these lineups throughout the year, ultimately you would be looking at Kemba, Brown, Tatum, one of the centers like Theis or Rob, and then it's who's the 5th guy? Is it Gordon? Does he step up and expand his game in this position? Then you look at Fournier, and then you look after Fournier, and it's looking real shaky again. So effectively, you move from having 6 guys to 7 guys maybe if Fournier's playing well. And I think you're just trading out too much in that spot to add unknowns, to take a risk. And I think they could hold out here and give up less. I know I've criticized for Boston doing that in the past, but I understand it this time.
But that's, again, I don't mean to make fun of you, Bobby, but that's the whole thing is when it gets down to it, the actual trade is going to be one that's difficult to make. So I know it's easy to say early, Danny, do something.
Well, here we are.
This is the something. And it's like, oh, really? All that, huh? I don't like it.
Well, let's put it on the table. As it stands, are you guys doing it?
My brain hasn't. You guys go. I'm struggling with it.
Josue's a no.
What's the trade?
Thompson, Smart, and 2 firsts for Fournier and Gordon.
It's not an awful deal, but no, I wouldn't do it.
Probably not. That's a lot of money. It's a lot for Gordon. Again,
I think I'm a no too.
The two firsts on top of it are a lot.
Well, here's the thing about the first. They might have full lottery protections.
They will.
Yeah, but they're not going to be in the lottery. I mean, that would be stunning.
But you're giving up 15 to 30.
I wonder if Orlando builds in protections where if they're like below 20-something, they roll over too, because do you want to take, again, this year is probably the best.
The battle of the protections. That would be a fun season.
This is the best pick you're going to get out of the Celtics, which is probably, if they make the playoffs and go out early, a 16, 17 pick,
You know what? Here's what I'll say, actually.
Realistically, you think that pick's in the 20s,
You know what? Like, the more I think about it, the more I would be okay with it. I'm almost saying no, because I'm thinking, well, who's gonna be the distributor, or who's gonna be the playmaker? It's like, well, if they can find another player for that role, Kemba, or just another player to fill those minutes that has similar abilities. Again, I'm not married to Marcus Smart. I would seriously consider that trade, especially if you're thinking that Ainge is going to target Gordon as a player that he wants to sign after, because like you said, they would need to acquire him via trade in order for that to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if I would find it hard to believe they're gonna play it back with Marcus Smart once his contract's up. I just find it hard to believe. I don't.
Yeah.
And this deal would leave a 10 million TP for the offseason for what it's worth. There'd still be some left over.
Yeah.
It's funny as I go round and around, I'm leaning towards doing it. But I'm not sure I love it. But
I don't. But what are you gonna do?
John,
you keep Rob.
Say I told you so.
And I'm not gonna
keep Rob in this deal.
I'm not gonna lie. I do want to see. I need, as again, the cap stuff makes my brain hurt, and I'm not going to pretend I understand it. I do need it, explained a little better in terms of why it affects not just now, but what they do in the offseason and then beyond, because it does seem that all of this is because the Celtics need it to be this way.
Are they hanging on for Beal? Is Beal still a pie in the sky option that they wouldn't want to blow up their chances for that?
Julian asking if we're doing daily shows this week. We are going to do something real quick, and I'll let you answer this. Sorry. We're going to do something immediately if there's news, and we're doing, not everybody in this chat knows it, we're doing a trade deadline special in the hour leading up to the trade deadline live, and we'll hang out for a bit after if they do make a deal for whoever is around in this group to do it on Thursday. But
what time is that?
Is the trade deadline 3
p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
So we're going to try to do that. We'll bring in cast of characters for that as well. But go ahead. Sorry. Finish what you were saying there. Josue, you were about to jump in.
No, I was just what was it? About the trade. I was done. That's all I had really.
Yeah.
I think I was saying something, but I forget what it was too.
Everybody's brains are fried by these cap gymnastics.
Yeah, the cap's
so goofy, and honestly, the league needs to get rid of TPs because everywhere a TP appears, another one appears, and it's just these empty roster spots that fan bases and teams have to juggle around and hype up and play with into the off season. And if that wasn't a possibility, maybe the Celtics do look a little longer at Turner and whatever Indiana was offering there as a way to salvage assets. This kicking back and whole discussion we've been doing and games we've been playing it's been great, but it's just the Excel sheet portion of the game that so many fans don't want to play around with. And you want to talk about players and real physical assets, not a magical $28 million spreadsheet box.
Right.
I would just get rid of that. Why?
I mean, they've made it very difficult. The NBA's made it so difficult to follow and to try to figure out what.
Well, just think of it. If you're losing Hayward because you couldn't retain him or you couldn't offer him a real deal, why should you get a $28 million box to use into the future?
It's so stupid. What I will say is, what are we going to talk about when there's no TPE anymore? When the Celtics use it, we'll literally have nothing to discuss.
Well, that's why it's so important. There is nothing after that. After that, what's after Tatum and Brown?
Jimmy stayed overtime here. We're well into the night. It's a school night. Jimmy's got meetings. We've all got to sleep some. It's a back-to-back night.
I think Brock is literally starting to shut me down right now.
Anybody at home again?
Josue needs to go to bed. Brock is literally like, Josue, you're done. This is it.
Commenters have been watching you like.
He's slowly fading away.
And not only are you fading in terms of it looks like your attention, but actually the screen's getting blurrier.
That's what I'm talking about. My screen literally is.
That's what I meant too.
Yeah.
Away. Completely out of things. But for everybody at home, we'll just let you know that subscribe if you haven't already.
Big week, guys. Big week.
You will get and turn on notifications. If something happens, we'll jump on live right away. Tell your friends about it. We'll obviously continue to do these shows throughout the rest of the season and the playoffs. Someone asked daily. We are going to eventually be moving daily with the show, and we'll let you guys know a little bit more about that. And again, we do have something very exciting that involves you guys the viewers coming up in April next week. So we'll tell you more about that when we get closer to it, but it's really cool and it's interactive and it's fun and it involves the viewers. So looking forward to it. But that's it. Again, thanks everybody on the panel in addition to hanging out because it was a late one. Jimmy, poor Josue.
Yo, I'm fine. Get out of here.
One thing I'm going to do either after Wednesday or during Wednesday show or Friday show, opening up a Top Shot pack on our show. I got a pack today. I was in the queue. I got lucky. So I've never had one. I've never opened one before, but we might be making thousands of dollars on this Top Shot pack. So I'm going to open it up like at the end of one of our shows, Wednesday or Friday.
Yeah.
So that's going to be riveting television for everybody involved.
Oh, sorry. I was offended by a comment, but I'm going to let it go.
Boomer might not know what Top Shot is. Don't worry about it. We'll explain it all.
Oh, I was looking at the ketchup over mayo, and I might ban this guy forever. But
what? That guy is. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Okay,
hey,
sorry.
Ketchup's only good for a couple
I'm
of
telling
things.
you, it's not cool to like mayo. People just hate.
People are ridiculous. Mayo is objectively delicious. It incorporates delicious ingredients that are all flavor enhancers. If you don't like it, I've got nothing to say to you. Ketchup is
bad for years, John. The stock's been booming.
If you don't like it,
Especially if it's that corn syrup ketchup.
Ketchup is to mask bad food. That's it.
Ketchup and mayo together. I'm weak for that. That's
money.
What do we think of turkey burgers?
Bobby, what's funny is I gave you grief for the turkey burgers, but I eat them all the time.
Oh man, I believe you, John. I'm that guy. I give people. I'm
not like what's that guy's name from Parks and Rec? Swanson.
The carnivore.
Yeah.
I'll do a turkey burger. You know what I've been eating is the Beyond Meat burgers are actually pretty good.
Yeah, I've tried.
Right,
I like them. I'll do one. I mean,
I've tried.
Not a burger, but
I've tried.
You know.
I tried. Rob Swanson, thank you.
Turkey ground beef is that's actually sometimes it's like the exact same. But turkey burgers, it's different, but I don't mind it. But I'll take
different.
a burger. Yeah,
I'll get down. Nick Offerman's one of my favorite actors, by the way.
Turkey ground turkey is pretty good though.
Yeah.
All
right.
And healthy.
Way healthier.
Way healthier.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's it, guys. We're into the pickle portion of the night. We'll say goodnight. And again, if someone's mentioning Sam Amick has news. Sam Amick just doubling down. It appears on the Matt Moore report. But that's what we think. If there's anything new, maybe we'll jump back on. But I think we're good.
He's a little confused about the cap portion of it too. So we'll sort all that out in the
That's
tomorrow.
what I mean. It's some people are saying Tristan has to be included. Some people are saying not.
I don't think my read on it from what I know is that you can very easily run into cap circumvention if you're trying to piece together multiple trades just to make a TP work, because you can't do Thompson and Smart for a TP deal. You can't send two players while you're eating one player in a TP. Yeah. And I don't think you could do multiple deals because it wouldn't be allowed into the cap. So
yeah, we got to wrap our mind around a lot of it. I wouldn't be surprised if you see us pop in tomorrow and talk some more about it. But until then, we will say goodnight. Thanks again, everybody, for joining.